Hi, my name's Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Company Culture Check video series. We're here today at the beautiful Studioplex to meet with Friendly Human and learn more about their amazing company culture. Hey, Daniel. Thanks for having us.
Come on in.
Daniel, thank you for having us here at Friendly Human.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we are at this amazing space at Studioplex, but before we get into the space, tell us a little bit about yourself and Friendly Human.
Yeah, glad to. I started it a few years ago and kind of in my parents' basement, that kind of classic story.
Right.
And it's been a wild ride so far. We're a video production company, content kind of generation of stills and that kind of stuff. But we work with brands of all sizes, some startups, but all the way up to like Home Depot and social media content for the Atlanta Hawks. So it's been
Awesome.
Fun spectrum.
And I've always enjoyed your tagline. So tell us a little bit about what your tagline is and where that came from.
Oh man, one time I had a brilliant copywriter over for dinner, and we were at the house, and there might have been a bottle of wine involved, but our tagline's "We Shoot People," and he came up with it, and it's just kind of this fun tongue-in-cheek of Friendly Human, We Shoot People. I think it's a nice yin and yang.
Gotcha. Do you get a lot of comments on that?
We do. Most 95% positive, and then there's the few people who don't have a sense of humor.
But right. That happens.
It kind of helps weed out the bad clients, bad fits for us anyway.
I could see that happening really quickly in today's atmosphere. So tell us a little bit about the space that you've built here at Studioplex and how that plays into the culture of the business.
We've been wonderfully nimble is a nice way to put it. We were in the Atlanta Tech Village for the first 3 years that was open. We moved in, I think the first week it was there. And we moved, I think, 5 times in those 3 years.
Right. So you're part of the construction process,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what it really helped kind of build into the culture of the company was this feeling of let's always have our stuff organized, let's keep it modular, just very agile. And so when we moved here, we kind of kept that same idea and that same philosophy. So, I want to have a little bit smaller desk so that I can have other places to go work. So everybody's kind of got their desk that's theirs to kind of nest a little bit in, and when they need to get stuff done. But then you can work at the kitchen bar, you can work at these high tops. Like this is usually my desk, one of these high top tables. But the conference room, the living room, the second office down the hall. So there's this let's spend our money. One of our core values is be frugal to be rich. We don't believe there's anything special about what we do. When we started this company, we didn't change the laws of physics. Right. We have to spend our money wisely so that we can live richly the rest of the time. And so frugal desk, rich kind of lifestyle around the office.
I like it. So since you mentioned values, what are some of the other values that you have, and how do you work those in on a daily, monthly, quarterly basis into the culture of the business? Awesome.
Great question. When we created ours, I really believe that core values need to be not long and complicated. They need to be short enough to remember, but they also need to be these kind of wells of meaning that we can keep going back to and drawing understanding from. So we have 6. We call them our sacred truths. And our first one is Golden Rule Plus. And it's this idea of the golden rule, but then we kind of pause and think, how can we make it even better every time? The second one is use good judgment. So I kind of stole that from HubSpot, but that's been my favorite because when you're managing someone, they're like, should I go with this or this? I can help you with that, but I trust you. I hired you because you're smart. Just use good judgment. And 99% of the time they make the right decision. So that's awesome. Really empowering. One is be frugal to be rich. Right. We already just talked about. And then disagree and commit. So that comes from IBM. When we're in a meeting, fight like cats and dogs until a decision is made, and then once the decision is made, take that decision as though it was your own idea and run with it. And so we kind of all agree on stuff at the end of every meeting. And then Kaizen. So, but I said that wrong. So Kaizen is this kind of Japanese word that is this boring Six Sigma kind of business consulting kind of thing. So we took it, it's all in caps, so you have to shout it. And it's kind of got the little Mexican Spanish exclamation points on it. Right. And it's just this always improving kind of spirit that we have. And I think that, the 2 that get talked about the most are Golden Rule Plus and Kaizen. So it's this do good for others and, kind of love your neighbor as yourself. But then on the other end of it, it's always be improving.
Nice. I love them. Those are very creative, and you feel like you get an essence of the company culture instead of something that's oversimplified that just sits on the wall and doesn't get used. So how are you reminding people on an ongoing basis of those values?
Yeah, so I think they just kind of works our way into our Slack channel a lot. We use a program called 15.5. It's a short survey at the end of every week. The idea takes 15 minutes to write for each person and 5 minutes to review. So one of those is questions that we ask is, what core value are we kind of missing at the moment, and how could we improve on it? So that's always brings up conversation, at least on a weekly basis. But I mean, we hire by them, we fire by them. They just kind of work their way into our conversation. I think when you have, if it was like honesty, right? Hope that's not one of yours.
No, it's not.
Honesty.
But really, that's what this video series is all about, right? It's to help the people in a lot of ways that came up with very high level values, where they honesty, integrity, all your normal stuff.
Those were both on the wall at Enron, by the way.
Right, I'm sure they were. Right. Maybe that's where I got those first two from, was some Enron story. But how do you take it from something that was written long ago that was on the wall to something that is really ingrained in the culture? And until you're exposed to a friendly human or a Gimme or other people that we've worked with on this video series, it's hard to really convey how those get ingrained into the culture and why they're so valuable.
Absolutely.
Fun little take.
Yeah, so I think you just have when you have great values. I love Zappos. I love Netflix had some great ones, but when you find those great values that have real meaning behind them, then it makes it easy to integrate it into conversation.
Definitely. Awesome. So Daniel, when I first came in, I passed through this little area right here where everything seems to be organized in an amazing fashion. Okay. And I noticed some other things. I don't want to start a religious debate, but Nikon or Canon?
Canon.
Oh,
Actually,
you answered
Panasonic
it.
these days.
I was going to stop you
Canon
before.
for lenses, but Panasonic, I love their cameras, and some Blackmagic because I'm Sony, but
awesome.
Kind of
Very
agnostic.
cool. So diverse.
Yes.
Diversity.
But I'm religiously in the Canon camp when it comes to glass. So.
Got it. So tell us a little bit about this area and how it fits in with your personality, the company, and what you like about this spot.
Yeah. So I think one of the interesting things is if you look at people and process and kind of how those two can relate, because we don't often think of process as being part of culture. One of the challenges that we face, we talk a lot about being always being kind but never being nice, right? In the South, we tend to be bless your heart, kind of nice, and sugarcoating things, and I think that is so destructive to the candor within a company. And so if stuff's not organized, I'll tell you about it, right? And it drives me nuts for gear not to be organized, and it's something that we really struggled with for years. And then last summer, we finally decided to solve that problem, and it was a 4-day weekend with 3 of us here, and we just worked 24/7 and built this whole gear closet. So everything's lined with carpet, so if something kind of gets dropped a little bit, it's not going to hurt it. But everything now has a place, whether that's color gels, the fusion gels, whatever, audio gear. Everyone has a bag over there, and so while they're loading up for a trip, but they can set their bag here while they pull gear and load it in. So it's really handy. And all this is on 500-pound drawer slides. So,
oh goodness!
You can, really abuse it, and it's just been great to have, and it's solved so many conflicts. I don't have to get on to people now, and I'm happier, they're happier, and it's been really great to see how a good process can not only make stuff look better, but also really improve morale and that kind of stuff.
Definitely. And one of your values is Kaizen, right? You have to say it with exclamation.
Exactly.
Right. So you're improving. How do you feel that this level of organization here gets embedded into the culture and how people do when they're on site, right? Because I would imagine that if you have to be organized at this level in the office, then that translates into other places of the business. So where does it translate into other places?
Oh, for sure. I think just having, I kind of hit it right before we started, but this is as simple as a checklist, right? And this is everything that you need to make a basic shoot happen. And so this normally lives on here, and so I hit it because it kind of looks a little bit old and raggedy, but just showing up to a shoot and knowing that everything is going to be there every time and not having to wonder that is so key. I remember we had a newer employee, this was years ago, but we had a newer employee, we show up to this kind of important shoot, and we're missing this one audio cable that's like this long.
Right.
And it was just like, how do you not have that? And thankfully it was nearby, and I called someone else from the office and had them run it over. But those kind of moments just don't happen now because the process is fixed.
Nice, you got the checklist. And for that checklist, it's right here, right?
Yep, right here.
I noticed one of the really cool things about this is, whereas if I write a checklist, it's a list. But you guys are visual, right? You're in the video space. All of these are beautiful little squares and icons and look amazing. And I think I'm gonna have to borrow this for a few things.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a lot more presentable.
One of my directors put that together. My favorite one on there is caffeine. I think he was
That's
just
a good
hunting
one,
for a
right?
last square to fill.
You can't leave an empty space, and you got to be energized.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I love the visual nature of that. Any other items you would like to share about how this rolls into the shoots on site?
One of the things we can talk about is these drawers right here.
Sure.
I think that so often it's like, how do we organize big, bulky things? And it was this mental roadblock of like, oh, like that can't be organized. Everything can be organized, right? Like if you can organize airplanes in an airplane hangar, you can organize video gear. And so we created these drawers, and they're able to pull out, again, they're on like 2,000 pounds worth of slides, all of our light stands, all of our tripods, everything's labeled. Everything has a place, everything's in its place.
Very nice. Well, this is beautiful. Great organization.
Thanks so much.
Tell me a little bit about how the kitchen brings everybody together in the space and how you utilize it to get your message across, convey your culture, and build camaraderie in the team.
So almost every morning, someone's cooking breakfast. At 9:15 every morning, we have a stand-up meeting. So that usually happens around the bar here. We've got a whiteboard in the kitchen, so we can have those kind of meetings if we need to. But it's just kind of just like at home. Like I feel like the kitchen is the central hub of a house. That's where family congregates. That's kind of where the Friendly Human family tends to congregate. Coffee's obviously a big deal throughout the day, so
Right.
you can usually have. I guess we have water cooler conversations so much as coffee machine, espresso machine conversations.
You mentioned the daily stand-ups. What other meeting rhythms do you have that keep people in sync? And are there any meeting rhythms or branding around those meetings that you inject in that really convey your culture?
So we have really three key types of meetings a week. One is the leadership meeting at 7:30 in the morning on Mondays. From that goes from 7:30 to about 9. And then from 9:15 to 10:15 is an all hands meeting. So it kind of gives the leadership team some time to prep and like, what are we going to talk about today and stuff. But both of those have agendas. The leadership meetings very much a traction style, good news, issues. Let's solve those, create to-dos out of that.
So y'all do a level 10. Do y'all do the full level 10 traction process, or it's kind of adaptive?
It's adaptive.
Okay, gotcha.
I feel like we've read all the books at this point. We take what works for us and leave the rest.
Nice.
And then the next meeting is very much out of, we're completely open book. So it's right out of Great Game of Business kind of style.
Okay.
So everybody in the company, like my most junior editor, can not only tell you what our expenses were last week, but what expenses mean and how that relates to cost of goods sold. So it's pretty cool to have. I told everybody here that I want you, as an owner, it's terrifying to, one, do profit sharing, and two, just give that kind of access of transparency, because when you have bad months, everybody knows it.
Right.
But I told everybody here, like, I want you to go to your next job and be able to see the writing on the wall if you're going to get laid off or whatever. Like, here's what's under the hood of running a company, and I think it will make people better employees, better people, and just smarter overall. So that's why we do it, and it's a lot of work and stuff, but we'll run through all the financials for the last week in half an hour each Monday morning in that, and then the other half of the hour is still that same level 10 style, but across the whole company of like, what do we need to work on? How do we Kaizen things, right?
So with that open book style, do you find that there's a lot of training involved, right? Because as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of fallacies out there about the economics of being an entrepreneur. And do you find that there's a lot of training and help that goes into having those newer people that may not analyze the financials or have analyzed the financials before, that's going to help them understand what's going on?
Absolutely. So those first few months, I felt like I was just some sort of financial coach, right? The whole leadership team, we were working through it, and it's the system we use is honestly a little bit complicated for our profit sharing kind of calculations and stuff, but it really incentivizes everybody in the same way. So We can grow the company fast, or we can grow the company profitably, but slower, and either way people win. Because either way, like, the owners win. And so with that, it was really important to have that alignment, but that also created a lot more training of like, what does it mean to grow something fast but not profitably for a while, and stuff, and how do we keep those aligned? So it's been great. Now, I'd say that took a quarter of just absolute painful training, just constant. That was every meeting we were talking about some kind of thing. Today, a different person. So we have two kind of roles as we're running through it. It's all in an Excel kind of dashboard online. So one person runs through it, and they're the kind of master of the meeting. And then we also have a scribe. So someone's writing all the numbers on the whiteboard. Because sometimes, and then everybody has their own little white notebook, and week to week is writing in all the numbers.
Gotcha.
So in case somebody misses a number, like, it's on the whiteboard. But yeah, it's been so great to, like, at one point after a couple months, it's like, okay, I'm not running this meeting. Who's running it today? You are. And it's like, you have to know what all the numbers are. So it's really fun.
So there's a balance of being able to have them be part of the meeting, but then moderate the meeting and go through enough training to be able to moderate that so somebody can step out.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And now everybody has run the meeting multiple times, and it just kind of works.
So you're growing leaps and bounds, and you need to add a little more space.
Yeah, we ran out of acoustic space. The parking lot is great, but it doesn't make a good phone booth in the summertime or when it's raining. So we rented another office here in the same building.
Got it.
And I've always wanted a space that didn't feel like you were in an office.
This is a beautiful space, super relaxed compared to, the other place is definitely relaxed, but this is gaming, leather couches, and a bar, a full bar.
Exactly.
So tell us about how this is utilized by your employees and what your vision is.
Awesome. Want a drink?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so I know you're more of a bourbon guy, but I'm going to make you a house cocktail.
Awesome.
Made with rum. I'm a bourbon guy too, but I think this uses aged rum, so it's got that kind of oaky wood flavor, and then a few other ingredients here. So
I'm excited.
This place has been so great to have for employees to bring their friends by on the weekends, and I try and perpetuate the idea that it's the coolest place to work in Atlanta, but it's been really fun for that.
How else are you utilizing this space?
We've been able to have, aside from like coming in on random Saturdays and there being employees showing their friends, and such a cool place, we've been able to have fundraisers. I think one cool thing is we've only had it for about 5 months or so, 4 or 5 months, and we've already raised more money for nonprofits than we spent on building it out. So I think, giving back has always been in the DNA of Friendly Human. We won the Marketing for Good Award last year from the Marketing Association. So it's just that that's how we classify a win. And so that's been great. We've been starting up having kind of these small group kind of discussions around different industries. In German, there's a word called Stammtisch, which means regulars table.
Which means what now?
Regulars table.
Okay.
And so here we're having groups of 6 to 8 people in these kind of, very transparent yet very confidential conversations, meeting every other month. And we've got a few of those going. And it's just been cool to have real discussion with cool people here in the space. So, okay,
awesome.
So your drink is almost ready. Let's grab you a glass. Okay, so this one's kind of fun. For that extra bourbony sort of flavor, we're gonna smoke a little bit of cloves. Let that sit for a second. And it smells nice.
Definitely.
There you go. See what you think.
Awesome. Thank you. Delicious.
Tastes good?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for the amazing drink.
Yeah.
I understand that your people get to travel a lot. restaurants, so they probably get drinks
They
from
do.
around the world. But
In the other
that
space, we
truck-
actually have a whole shelf of every time we travel somewhere, we bring back a bottle.
Nice,
And,
I love it.
So
they are
Indonesia, South
capturing
Africa,
that.
all that, yeah.
So that's a staple in your organization, to bring something back in the form of alcohol, which I love. You get to try lots of new things. I also saw on the wall behind me, there's a map.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the map that's on the wall.
This kind of old-looking map, but it's all the places that we've traveled to around the world. Because again, it's that world perspective of like leaving your little bubble and meeting people and finding out that humans around the world are all the same. And so our team has gotten to travel to a lot of places, and then the gold pins are actually the places we've worked and shot as a company. So it's a lot of fun.
And I think it's a great thing to capture everywhere that you've been, so that you can reflect on it,
Yep.
at a future point in time.
Yeah.
So Daniel, most companies that are growing like you are have onboarding processes that really, get people on board, get them trained, and ingrain their company culture into them in the beginning stages, as early as possible.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your onboarding process and how you manage that.
Well, I think that onboarding really starts with the hiring process, right? Like, what is that first interaction someone has? And even before that, of like, how did they learn about the company? And so here we've kind of treated the whole thing very similar. We actually kind of hacked our marketing automation software so that it's a consistent feel through the whole thing. I don't ever want anybody getting lost through the cracks. So for the recruiting process, we sponsor some events and stuff, and just kind of try and really, there's this new term of like employer brand, of the way your employees or potential candidates think about you. And so we've always really paid attention to that. So we get about 200 to 250 applicants per job opening, which is awesome. I like, for that one person that gets it, it's great. And for those other 249 people, I want them to go back and say like, that is the coolest company in the world. It is so hard to get a job there. And like, you should try if you're really good, And so we really take a hard look at that hiring process to make sure that it's just as awesome. And then our onboarding process, there's 53 touch points that happen over 6 weeks. I mean, it's not easy. Your first week, you've got a 100-question exam you have to score at least a 90 on. Rather than spending 6 months learning everything by osmosis, it's that, what's our phone number? What's our parking space number? What kind of gear do we use? Where was our last office? So that when you're having conversations with clients, you can know all those things. But from there, it's I'll get a reminder to take them out to coffee, or their boss will, or whoever the direct report into. And so it's just making sure they're a part of the team, making sure they have real work on day one to do, and really can feel like a part.
I love the idea. So in my last company, we were in CRM and we did a lot of marketing automation. And that's where the leads came into the CRM system. And I saw a lot of marketing automation use for the customer facing side. But you flipped that around and said, I'm going to use this same technology in order to onboard all of my new folks,
Exactly.
the new people in the organization. So that's an amazing use of the technology that you're already paying for.
And it's fun because we'll, just like with the customer side, we'll do, kind of instead of customer journey mapping, or client journey mapping, we'll do employee journey mapping. And so we think about like, what are those touch points, and we draw out swim lanes and say, okay, we're going to see them here, they're going to apply here, and here's all those steps along the way. With our hiring process, I heard one time this idea of making sure, it was really in the sales kind of side of things, of making sure that the closers aren't in that first meeting, right? You want to like save them for the end. And so I kind of took that same perspective. So we front load the hiring process on the person applying. So with the marketing automation, we'll ask them some questions and determine if they're a good fit based on those questions. Do they know the software we use, for example? If they're in a job that types a lot, how fast is their typing speed? And based on that, it runs a decision tree. And maybe I shouldn't be giving all our secrets away, but it runs a decision tree. And if they don't fit, then it will automatically wait a couple days to make it look like one of us handled it, but say, hey, like, thanks so much for applying. It's not a good fit right now. And so that takes literally zero work. We don't even know they exist, but they know why that they didn't get in and stuff. So they can go back and work on the typing speed. From there, it'll then follow up with a kind of written interview. I read all of those personally. I don't know how long I'll be able to do that. It's very time intensive, but I'll read them all. And then one of my junior hiring managers will read them all. We make notes, we start having them in, and it gets higher and higher touch throughout the process.
Awesome. So you have these, I heard the skills question, like the software that you use, the experience around that, the skills question on typing. Do you have any culture questions where they answer something very near and dear to your heart that kind of has the essence of your culture that you filter them out on?
So on this kind of 7 essay written interview that they do, the last question is, I'd created the custom field in the CRM, and I had forgot what I wanted to ask. So I was probably tired and sleep deprived, and I wrote, if you had to describe your editing style or whatever type of job it is in terms of a species of penguin, what would it be, and why the hell would you even do that? And those have been the most telling answers, because some people will say, well, this is dumb. Well, you didn't get the job.
Right.
And some
That's
people
not the right answer.
will be like, I just Wikipedia'd for 2 hours, and I think I'm this kind of penguin, and this is the craziest question I've ever answered. I'm like,
right.
You're probably a good culture fit here. So, it's all about learning, and if you just kind of throw your hands up at a penguin question, and like, I don't know any species of penguins, then you probably will do the same when you're in front of the clients.
Yeah, I totally get it. On our podcast series, I actually talk about my interview at a company called Spy Dynamics that I was at, where they gave me a questionnaire and made me take a test. And essentially, I ended up writing a 16-page paper to answer what they needed. And it was more of a QA testing type of methodology. And so sent that over. Well, I got the next interview, so it seemed to work out. So I love those types of questions because it really makes sure to filter down and get you the people that are going to put that work effort in at any point in time, right? If they can't answer and do the research on the penguins, then there's probably something else that they might not do the research on or put the effort into later.
Exactly, and it's just all about solving real problems, like being able to own, even though it's a silly question in this case, being able to own it and say, how am I going to own this and carry it across that finish line?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us.
Cool.
We really appreciate your time, and it was great learning about your company culture.
Awesome, thanks so much.